Welcome, Palm Beach baseball fans. We have something exciting for you today. We are previewing the upcoming St. Andrews Westminster Christian regional semifinals, and we have with us St. Andrews head coach Joey Housey. Joey, welcome in.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. So let's start a little bit with the season you've had. You guys have had a little bit of a resurgence this year. Um, you kind of came out of nowhere. You started out kind of slow, losing three of your first four, and you guys have been one of the best teams in Palm Beach since then. So talk a little bit about that early season struggle and how that switch got turned after game four.
Well, I think we've had a very talented group. I think what we've lacked is just being able to put it together in whole, expect to have to battle against tough teams, and really expecting to win. So I think that, losing three of the first four games of the season versus very good St. Thomas, University School, and Benjamin, I think it really, showed that, hey, if we're going to do the things that we'd like with the type of talent we have on the field, we need to really invest in the smaller details. And I think at the high school level, it's even more pronounced than at other levels where, it might come down to one inning that wins or loses you a game. It's an overthrown cut that goes into the dugout. It's a routine ball not being fielded. It's a bunt play that gets butchered. Those little things take you from giving up a one spot to a four spot, and that could be the difference in the game. So I think, kind of getting punched in the mouth in three of those first four games did us a lot of good. And once we started rolling out some wins, there was a cultural shift where we expected to win. We expected if we gave up four in the first two innings and we were down 4-0, that we were going to come back and make it a game. So I think that's been the biggest part of us growing as a team.
So how great is that? Because every coach strives for that, especially teams that haven't been there before and haven't won that. I see consistently the teams, they knock on the door, and then all of a sudden it's that confidence for a high school player and a high school team, and all of a sudden they're rolling off 2, 3, 4 state titles in a row. So how nice is it to see that you guys were able to do that mid? Most teams it takes years to do that. You were able to do it mid-season, and now you guys are playing with probably the most confidence of anybody out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I'm so happy for our team, for our guys, to be able to experience, a really good high school season, because the reality of it is, for as good of a group, they haven't really gotten to have that. And I know from, my time playing at Nova High down south when we were a powerhouse back in the day, that even going on to a big college program, your high school memories they're special. And, I talked to the group early on, right when we were getting things going. And one of the things I told them is, you probably won't believe me unless we actually do it. But if you invest and you care and you take pride in the program, this could be one of the most, meaningful baseball years of your life. And, I think that regardless of what happens moving forward, that they're going to look back on this year and be very proud of it and be able to reflect on it for years to come, even when they do go on to play college baseball. Because it's different. It's a tight-knit community down here. Everyone knows everyone on all the teams, and it's a different type of fun than when you're at a program in South Carolina, and you might hear about the other good players in the conference, but you don't know them. And I think that's one of the things that makes high school baseball really memorable, especially when you're going good, is it makes it a lot of fun. It makes it special, and it makes it a very community feel.
Absolutely. I mean, that's, I tell people all the time, that's the difference in why the baseball down south is just what it is down here in South Florida. But let's talk a little bit about your more recent journey, because you guys knocked out a team last week that had only 2 losses a couple weeks ago, and you've given them 3 of their 6 losses after sweeping them last week. So talk about, again, we're back at that confidence and the difference of how you guys just matched up with them when they've pretty much been rolling through everybody and they just couldn't solve you last week. So talk about that performance.
Well, I think the first time we did get a win versus University School, that was an incredibly tough battle at the Palm League tournament up at the ballpark of the Palm Beaches. they made some tremendous defensive plays. We made some good defensive plays that were game savers, and it just so happened to go our way in that game, in a 10-inning game, I think it was. And then when we went down to university school for the regional, I think we put together, two of our most well-rounded games all year. We swung the bats well. We executed little things well. We had successful slashes, stolen bases to third, sack bunts, and we got some phenomenal pitching performances. So I think we played two extremely well-rounded games versus a team that, quite honestly, we were going to have to play really well-rounded games against, because U School, I mean, they're pretty tight. They do everything well. Dan Rivetto runs a tremendous program. Their culture is outstanding, and if we were going to win those two games, we needed to play a really well-rounded couple games, and that's exactly what we did.
You mentioned something before about, no matter what happens moving forward, it's been a historic year for you guys, and you've taken steps forward. But at the same time, you're still playing. So how do you deal with that with your team? How do you deal with the fact that they may be feeling like they're already happy where where they've reached this year? How do you keep that complacency in its place and let them know that this ain't the end of the journey yet?
Well, I think it's a healthy addiction. It's if I'm a first team all conference pitcher, I want to be first team all state. If I'm a first team all state pitcher, I want to be, the conference pitcher of the year when I go to college. And I think it's that culture of continuing to hold yourself to a higher standard, hold the guys around you to a higher standard in the locker room, that kind of feeds that addiction. And once you get that itch of, hey, winning's fun, winning's a lot of fun, then, how do I get a little bit better? How do we get a little bit better to give ourselves the best chance to really, really do something very special and keep moving on throughout these state playoffs?
And how do you prepare for a team like Westminster Christian? Because with University, it was one animal of the season they're having this year. But with Westminster Christian, you have a long history of winning. They're one of the top 5 programs in the state as far as state titles go, and they're used to being in this position, and they're used to being in the state finals. So how do you deal with the difference in your teams, and how do you approach that when you're playing a team with that kind of history?
Well, I think, from at a surface level, it starts with trying to get a little bit of a scouting report, however you can, whether it's watching video, getting some tendencies. I know they've got, 2 really good starting pitchers. They're obviously a storied program from growing up down south. I was always familiar with Westminster Christian, but I think at the end of the day, it's we take care of ourselves. We know we're playing at home. We know our home field. We know what we've got to do to win. And if we can grind it out and beat tough outs and throw strikes, I think we've got 3 pitchers on the mound that can beat anyone. So, from an offensive and defensive standpoint, I think it's just about, passing the bat to the next guy, getting to the next pitch. Things are inevitably going to go sideways at some point. But being able to, minimize the damage and stay with ourselves. And I think if we do that, then we've got a good shot.
And talk about having the games at home. I mean, it's great for your school. It's great for the community. You got the first 2, and again, the kind of home field advantage they have down at their park. So how important is it for you guys to play well at home and try to not get it back to Miami?
Well, I think it's incredibly important. It's nice to play at home. We have our routines at home. There's just that comfort factor. Our field does play a little bit different than most, at least in my opinion, different than some of the places we've played at this year. So, I'd like to think that's an advantage, but for all we know, we have a team come in and they make it look like their home field. So, but I do feel like it's a great comfort factor. We've played well there all year long. I think we've only lost 1 home game, besides one that we were a home game at FAU. We did lose our only home game of the season to King's Academy in the district tournament. So, there's definitely a level of comfortability there. I think the field plays well to our strengths, and I love it for the school. I love it for our community, and hopefully we can do some things and put on a good show.
Well, you've had a tremendous season this year. You certainly deserve a lot of the credit. You've set the culture there, which I know was the goal with you coming in. And you got a bright future, and we wish you luck this week, and hopefully we'll be talking again at the end of this week.
Thanks, Anthony. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Coach. Good luck.
Okay. Bye.